The word I tell people all the time about that point in my life is tumultuous. I felt unstable. And I was just dropping 30 in front of 2,000 people 6 weeks ago. Talk about the highs and lows of life. Valleys and peaks is crazy. I was destined to be a basketball player. It was either that or a really tall accountant. I had a couple tryouts with the Lakers.
Yeah.
Didn't make it. That was the first time I ever had to disassociate what I did versus who I am. Your identity is tied to something you've done every day for the last X amount of years.
You are your sport.
Exactly.
And how do I actively choose to step away from the only thing that I have known?
Yes. Check the parachutes and jump.
Today on No Former Athlete podcast, we are joined by Chris Eversley, who grew up on the south side of Chicago in a family with remarkable athletic legacy. In this episode, Chris candidly discusses the mental and physical demands of being an athlete and the struggles of transitioning out of his professional basketball career. You'll enjoy this insightful conversation with Chris Eversley, now the founder of Overtime Solutions, which helps athletes navigate life after sports, providing career preparation and holistic support. Let's get into it. So, one way I love to start this out, welcome to the No Former Athlete podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Are you an athlete?
Technically, yes. I am still an athlete if you count men's league 3 nights a week.
Hey,
So,
there he
not
is.
Professionally, I do dabble in some 3x3. I unfortunately will not be in the Olympics. I'm not that good anymore.
Fair.
But yes, I'm an athlete by trade and by design still.
I love that.
Yes.
Do you have to still be actively competing in some way to consider yourself an athlete?
Ooh, I would say physically for me, yes. Just because I think that is my connection to it. And I realize that as we get older and our bodies develop and things start to quote unquote break down, you do have to keep that sort of mentality amongst yourself. So, combining the mental with the physical, for me, I have to do it because if I take a couple of days off and go on vacation, I feel like a senior citizen.
You feel that separation from it.
Yes, very quickly, which I don't think that's ever going to go away.
Fair.
So that's something where I tell myself, no matter what, even when you make it past your physiological prime of 28 to 33, I'm still trying to be out here 60, 65, getting after it Saturday mornings with, and then going to get either a complete ice bath because I'm
yes,
right, or a coffee and a bagel because my stomach's not as big as it used to be. So.
Fair enough. Give us a little bit of sports background.
Okay.
When did young Chris, get into sports? What were kind of your go-tos back in the day?
Yeah, growing up on the south side of Chicago, I was essentially destined to be a basketball player. It was either that or a really tall accountant. So both my parents actually played. My dad played for Chicago State,
Amazing.
And then he got drafted by the Bulls, got injured in the preseason, then spent 7 years over in Sweden.
Okay.
He's 6'5", and then my mom grew up south side as well, went to Long Beach State, was a member of their Final Four teams. So now with women's sports, finally, the recognition it is deserving. So when you hear about some of these records that Caitlin Clark is breaking around, like the Cheryl Millers and stuff like that, like my mom was hooping against them. So like back when USC had her, the McGee twins, those people, my mom was on the Long Beach State side.
Yes.
And my mom's 6'3",
Amazing.
So it's kind of just like I was either going to be, for some reason, 5'2", or I was going to be 6'7". So I still think I got cheated a little bit, but we're not going to get into that. I'm not going to.
We won't go there. We won't go there.
But so just both of them kind of, they had the path laid out for me.
Yeah.
Should I want to travel it? The one thing I definitely appreciate about my parents the most is the fact that they never forced it on me.
Yes.
They just said, hey, we're going to use the fact that you're not growing up in necessarily the best neighborhood.
Fair.
And we're going to use sports as a tool to keep you busy.
Yep.
So every weekend we're gone. We're playing soccer. We're in bowling. We're doing swimming. We're doing diving, like all these different things. And it essentially just kept me out of trouble.
Absolutely.
And I grew up in a neighborhood in my youth where I couldn't necessarily go outside and ride my bike because, there was violence, all these things. So when we moved to the suburbs a little bit later, I was able to go outside, have a little bit more of a, normal bikes on the grass, friends over childhood.
Yeah.
But again, sports just really kept me busy. So they did a great job of making sure that they never really forced me into it. And then when I got to high school, I still wanted to try to do everything because I'm a 13-year-old with so much energy and I don't know what to do with myself. So I remember I had my final 3. I was going to play baseball, I was going to play football, I was going to play basketball.
There it is. Yep.
And the trifecta. And I'm like, okay, I'm most in love with basketball, but I'm still good at these other 2. And then First day of football practice. At the time, I'm 5'9", probably 160 pounds soaking wet, right? So first day of practice, I get hit by somebody that's larger than me, and I'm like, yeah, that ain't it.
That's not me. That's not me.
It's like, now I got basketball in the fall,
Okay,
and the winter,
okay.
and then baseball was tried in the spring. Spring came, baseball, I was like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna just go with basketball at this point. And it wasn't the fact that I didn't love baseball anymore.
Yeah.
But it was now time for baseball season was during AAU travel season.
There it is.
So it's like if I want to chase basketball,
right,
I got to commit to it year round.
Yeah.
So of course my parents are like, it's about time. Like
they're like, we weren't gonna force you. We weren't gonna force you, but the writing's a little on the wall.
It's here. It's here.
Yeah.
So that's when I fully committed to playing basketball.
Okay.
Freshman year in high school. My dad worked in the school system, so I always had access to a gym.
Nice.
And we would just, our weekends were literally going to the gym and just working out. And like he would, go do some work or whatever. And then I would just be in the gym for hours by myself. That just turned into my life that summer. I went from 5'9" to 6'2". Obviously played my school seasons.
Yeah.
And then in the summer, my cousin Sean, he was a coach at Mineral Area College in Farmington, Missouri. And I would go down there and play against the JUCO guys, as a sophomore and a junior before or right after the AAU season ended.
Yeah.
And just getting a chance to play against grown men. And not only grown men, but grown hungry. Like JUCO guys are trying to.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And again, most of the time, these are high major athletes who just had academic issues.
Totally.
So it's kind of like getting to play against, honestly, some of Chicago's best basketball players, getting to be in some of those summer leagues back in Chicago, getting to play in Sonny Parker's program and like watching Jabari grow up.
That's
like
sick.
knowing Jabari is like the smaller, like chunky kid. And then seeing some of my high school idols that I grew up watching just go on to do the JUCO route and then go on to play in Kansas and Kansas State, like that type of stuff. So it was just good to be a part of that.
You were surrounded. You were surrounded by it.
Yeah. Needed to be successful and realize like, oh no, like you thought you were working out. Like, no, this is what a workout is.
Yeah.
Just that Missouri, Chicago / Illinois connection was huge in my upbringing in terms of at least getting to my senior year. So
Love that.
Chapter 1, I guess.
Chapter 1. I like that.
Going into my senior year, the month of August was pretty much all workouts. So basically August and September, I'm at school pretty much 2 or 3 days a week at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
After the hour commute to get there to work out for different universities the next.
Yeah, and that's literally when you're saying this for people that might not understand or know. You're literally just going to the gym and running through workouts, running through drills, just so coaches can see you performing, not in a game setting.
Exactly. So, I think that it's something it's one thing to see people in a game setting on the AAU circuit, but again, people want to see how you work. It's the same reason we have pre-draft.
Yep.
They want to pull up and they want to have pro days. They want to see how do you work in this setting?
Yeah.
Because it can tell a lot about you and who they do and don't have to worry about from a work ethic standpoint. So a typical day my senior year for August and September, or the first half of September, was actually wake up 4:30.
Yeah.
My mom and I are in the car. I'm at school by 6. Working out from 6 to 7:30, 7:45. My first class is at 8. And then I'm in school all day, and I got practice after that.
Of course.
Right? Because that's just the student athlete. We're paused there because I want to say I wouldn't change anything about my life.
Yes.
Right? However, if there was one thing that I would have considered a little differently was the fact of now at 32, I bet on myself. Whereas I took the safe bet. So ended up committing to Rice. Pretty much went there for my freshman year. Ended up playing behind a guy named Arslan Kazemi, who still plays to this day. Was in the league with a couple of teams, I think like Philly, Houston Rockets. Good dude.
Yeah.
But it was just the situation didn't work out for me. Yeah. Right. And that's perfectly fine.
Yep.
Because it then allowed me to find the journey that I'm still on now. So ended up transferring from Rice to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo.
We'll get there and we'll kind of talk about it, but like now you are working with the student athlete side, and so you're touching base with those kids that are maybe about to make those big decisions or maybe have just made those big decisions. I am also that person that's like, I don't regret anything, right? It's like it's impossible to be the person that you are today with regretting something. I think that that's just a really good point that you made, and it factors into the decisions that you make, factors into that next step, which then does springboard into the
trajectory.
future. What are some of those things in what you're telling kids now that you would want them to know?
I saw this thing. If you take a plane from LAX,
Mm-hmm.
you literally turn it 3 degrees over the course of the entire country.
Yeah.
That plane is either going to be in Baltimore or New York City. 2 vastly different places. But that's why your launch pad and your trajectory is so important, because where you end up is very much due to where you could start. And kind of like where you kind of like tilt the cannon to shoot, because it's a precursor to having the right people around you before you make your decision.
Yep.
Right? Because the thing that is rampant now is advice, good and bad.
Yeah.
Right? It is advice. Everybody has an opinion. What I tell people is it can be a little tough at, honestly, 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
Because you're, again, from a scientific standpoint, your prefrontal cortex is not developed. You don't know who you are.
Absolutely.
However, it's that much more important to surround yourself with people who actually care about you before anything happens.
Yeah.
Because the decisions that you can't see, there should be taking care of your blind spots.
Yep.
Right. So that's why I always say surround yourself with people who have been where you want to go.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's like, okay, it's never a place of greed. It's a place of experience. So again, my parents, they knew what the deal was already.
They knew.
So it's like, okay, Chris, like, hey, here's a decision you can make. However, just know that these are the potential consequences of said action. When you're that young, it's hard to know who you are morally and ethically just yet, because you haven't lived.
At all. At all. Again, for us, both sitting here at 32, where it's like, even just the things that in college, the things since college, the things this last year that I'm like, oh, okay.
Exactly.
Okay. All those things. Yeah. You don't know those things at that age.
The main thing I would tell anybody, and this is what I tell people now in my personal life, relationships, business, the people around you that care, the only thing you need them to do is supply you with all the rules and let you decide if you want to play the game. For me, that's what OS is. I'm going to let you know all the rules, and if you want to play, cool. If I'm dating someone, this is who I am. Here's my psych report. Here are all the rules. If you want to play, then play. But it's like, know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So again, if you're a young athlete out there, or if you're anybody out there, doesn't have to be an athlete.
Yes.
Just make sure that the people around you are better than you at something. And that way you can gather all the rules and decide which course of action you want.
And in a sense, it is that kind of like, it's a boundary setting too.
Exactly. So.
And have you always known those things?
Yeah, I mean, the answer is obviously no. Because again, my dad has this famous saying, he's just like, you never stop learning to the day you die.
Yeah.
I mean, the man, he's seen a lot of things, again, travel the world, both my parents, honestly, and they still are learning about themselves. And you find yourself just recreating different versions of yourself. And one, I call it like BVOY is the acronym, but best version of yourself. You're going to have so many of those throughout your life, right? Because one of them may be a parent. One of them may be a widow. One of them, like, life's highs and lows should keep you changing. So, while I tell people, like, every day you wake up, you should know who you are morally and ethically, but understand that the rest of it is fluid. Like, because there's only so many things you can control when you go out into the outside world.
I like that. All right. Let's circle ourselves back. We have transferred.
Yes, we have.
We've successfully transferred.
Successfully transferred. So again, that summer between Rice and Cal Poly, I would go work out in the morning.
Yeah.
And then I would be with other guys who were just from Chicago.
Yeah.
And then at night I have to come back to campus for class.
Yeah.
So it was just, again, that grind of just like, you already know this is just work.
Yeah.
So now, when I look back at it and, people are like, well, where do you get so much energy, or how do you stay so balanced, or kind of like know where every ball is that's juggling?
Yeah.
It's because I've been doing this for, you know what I mean? Like 15 years.
Yeah.
So
started in high school.
It started in high school. Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. It was everything that I needed, because at the time, again, in the old transfer requirements, once you went D1 to D1, that was it.
Right.
So I couldn't transfer portal.
Bounce to another one.
Right. So that was it back in the day.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what, Chris, make a decision based on, if basketball doesn't work out, would you still be happy here?
Yep.
And I had family in Los Angeles, and one of my mom's college teammates is my godmother. So they lived out here. So I used to visit every few years. And I'm like, you know what? Hey, if school doesn't work out, at least I'm in Cali.
Hey,
I don't
I
have
feel
to,
you.
I don't
I
have
feel
to
you.
fight hypothermia half the time of the year. I don't have to worry about that. Like all this stuff. I'm like, it is what it is. Realizing that I have to go here, I have to sit out for a year, I have to practice and then attend class, make sure everything's good. That year was the most important year of my life. The reason I say it was the most important is because I left Rice 6'6", 195. I stepped back on the court as a sophomore after that year at
Yeah.
6'7", 225. So working out 5 days a week,
Yeah.
drinking as much muscle milk muscle milk collegiate as humanly possible.
Yes.
But more importantly, understanding what it was to really enjoy my college experience
Yeah.
without the repercussions of, oh, I got to go deal with basketball. It's like, yeah, I show up to practice. But for me at the time and again, when we talk about totality, I want to be completely transparent. I was one of those kids where during my transfer year, I went out and partied because my only responsibilities were Sunday through Wednesday.
Yep.
And then once the team left on Thursday to go to conference, it was like, all I have to do is go to class and I can work out and I can go party and do what I got to do.
Not get in too much trouble, but like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you got to live.
Yeah.
Because again, who you are in those formative years, especially again, as you're creeping up to that 25.
Yeah.
Those experiences are going to shape who you are as a person. Like you have to go out and you have to, know what it's like to be in these different
experience things, meet people.
100%.
Like again, you're figuring out who you want to surround yourself with.
Exactly. And those are the types of people that you realize as you get older and start to become a formative adult. It's like, all right, going out to frat parties, going out to be like, oh, not all frats are bad. Like, not all, you know what I mean? Like, not all sororities just want to party. Like, some of them are doing very good community things.
Absolutely.
So, but again, you don't know those because in the student athlete vacuum at times, you don't have time to do that.
Yep.
Right. So if you do have time to get outside of your bubble, if you're sitting out with an injury or if you're sitting out, for whatever transfer rules, go out and experience that. So it really allowed me to learn and embody that entire student athlete experience. So then when I stepped foot on the court as a sophomore that could play, I had partied enough. I had done everything that college people say you should do in college. So now it's like, oh no, let me go hoop.
Now you're zoned in.
Now I'm zoned in because it's like, oh, Chris, we going out to this. No, I did that.
Yeah.
Chris, you want to come out? No, I got to go to the
I'm
to the
good.
hotel. Like, I got to do what I got to do. So it allowed me to really lock in.
Yeah.
And, but first half of my sophomore year was, I would go as far as to say it's disastrous. It was disastrous. I probably set the team record for most charges. I kept running over people in practice because I was playing too fast. Because remember, I hadn't played in a year. So I was like, and then I'm playing with a new frame. One game, both of our starting centers got in foul trouble. So our Coach Calero, he looking down the bench. He looking down the bench like, damn, I really got to play this kid right now. So, you know what? I get out there and I'm like, you know what? Let me just go out here and whatever happens is going to happen. I get out there and honestly, just hoop. Don't worry about anything because I'm like, look, the stakes are already, I'm used to not playing anyway. Something went well. I went out there and just was rebounding, was hooping, ended up scoring like 19 points in the first game off the bench. And then the coaching staff was like, it was like that moment. It was like, he's capable. He's here. He's arrived. This is who we wanted. Like this is the kid that we saw on tape.
Yeah.
So from that point on, honestly, just where you start isn't where you have to finish. Whether it's a transfer or whether it's your individual season. I think it's just a matter of staying ready for your time. The definition of luck is where timing meets opportunity. So if there's an opportunity and you've been working with those lights off and you've been putting in countless hours, your time's going to come, but are you prepared to meet the moment? If you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready.
You've just taken your year off. You've been working out. You're finally able to get back on there. It is not going at all how you were planning on it. You're trying to control the things you can, like you were just saying, but like what was your brain space?
You know what? At the time, it was all over the place for where it would be for a 19-year-old kid. My biggest thing that I took from Kevin Durant one time was like, nobody cares, go to work. And that's always been my mentality. It's like, oh, no, there's a lot of things out there, again, trying to take me out, but I can control what I can and can't do. Mental health, I think it really just shines a light on the importance of that, again, because you have these student athletes who aren't fully adults yet.
Yeah.
And you have all these external circumstances of college and everything that comes with that, my athletics, my social life, my books. I was very fortunate enough to come from a stable household. I realized that there are a lot of student athletes out there who do not. So how are we putting things in place for them to have the right tools to make sure, because they may not be able to call home.
Yeah.
They may not be able to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So seeing the mental health boom in college sports and just sports in general has been nothing but amazing, which is why like I'm glad I'm able to work in that space now, because I realize that there's a lot that goes into that from a neurodivergent standpoint. There's a lot that goes into that for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. But it's just to see that finally getting the spotlight is important.
It's a part of every human.
Yep.
And then you take, like you said, you take these student athletes or you take these kids, that, okay, yes, they might be older than 18 at this point, but
They're still kids.
They're still kids. We all were there. They're all going through all those things on a regular basis while having to show up for all these things, while having to hit all these marks, while being evaluated. We've got all these things in the background going on. There's that piece of like, I'm not performing. I'm not getting on the court. I'm not doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not achieving these goals that are set towards me.
Exactly.
Did you feel some of that kind of like during that time?
Yeah, and that was the first time I hit we'll call it the fork in the road in my life, because that was the first time I ever had to disassociate what I did versus who I am.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where a lot of student athletes, especially at that age, if you don't have the right things around, like you're not going to know, because your identity is tied to something you've done every day for the last X amount of years.
Your identity is tied to a thing you do.
Right.
You are your sport.
Exactly.
Well, you're not. No. You're not.
Right.
The sport piece and all of that brings us so many wonderful things in our life, but it's not your whole life.
Exactly.
And it isn't.
Exactly. Because you realize whether you want it to or not, the ball is going to stop bouncing. Right. So it's like, okay, who are you going to be after that? Imagine you're the house, right? For me at the time, I'll just use myself as an example.
Yeah.
For me at the time, Chris, the athlete, was the entire house.
Entire house.
And now it's Chris Eversley's house, and him being an athlete is one room. Him being in the, any sort of extracurricular activity or like youth development program is another room.
Student group,
like all of
your major, your class. Yeah.
You should have so many rooms in your house, but never forget that it is your house.
Yep.
Just make sure and again, some rooms are going to be larger than others. You're going to spend more time in them. Being cognizant of the fact that, look, all of these rooms serve as the identity of who I am, but they don't have to be necessarily everything that I do. And I think that is important for athletes or people of any age group to really understand. Don't let what you do define who you are.
Did you come to the house analogy while you were still competing in organized sport?
This has been more recent. I started to make a psychological shift with myself when I went pro, because my schedule was a lot different.
Yeah.
I have a lot more free time.
Yeah.
So you spend a lot of time with yourself. Playing in Europe and Asia, you're always on a massive time difference. And I'm very analytical by nature. And I spend a lot of time just trying to realize, okay, like planning things out in far in advance. So that came, I would say, from 26 on.
Yep.
Post-college. And, again, a lot of those experiences going back to college for a little bit at least, the experiences of being first team my junior year.
Yep.
Taking the school to the NCAA tournament. Being part of that type of stuff, and everything that comes with that. It just really shapes who you will become.
We learn so much in those transitional moments. You partially mentioned it. So you went on to play internationally.
Yes.
You played in Europe.
Europe and Asia.
Yeah. How many years were you playing professionally?
5 years.
5 years.
Yes, I did 3 in Southeast Asia. Really cool setup, by the way, because that is another thing that's made me who I am today, because every team in our league was in a different country.
Very cool.
So, a typical week, you're hitting whatever, right, for, 5 or 6 months out of the year. But the one thing from a philosophical standpoint that I learned, especially being in Southeast Asia, is because I think Thursday night we played in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And then the following 2 days later, we were in the Philippines.
Yeah.
2 vastly different worlds.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like you're going from an epicenter, a travel hub of just the world in general.
Yeah.
And then you have it literally 48 hours later, you're looking at like slums and stuff like that, where people with a fraction of what we're fortunate enough to grow up with here in the United States or in Europe are exponentially happier than we'll ever be. So I think that's something, again, seeing that and then being able to go to Europe after that and realizing it just taught me a lot about the world.
All right. So we're 5 years. We're playing professionally.
Yes.
did you choose to step away from that? What did the end of the professional career look like for you?
So the end of the professional career is something that honestly, when I tell people, it sounds crazy to them. And I get the weirdest looks. I was bored. It had been something at the time I'd been doing for 2 decades.
Yep.
Competitively.
Yep.
And there's only so many shots you can take. There's only so many signatures so many things you can sign. There's only so many flights you can take, all these things. And what I think in society we fail to realize is if you're fortunate enough in your 20s to still have parental figures around, you have to realize that they're also getting older.
Yeah.
Right. And again, that's bad enough being here in America. Like you can be in New York and your family's in LA.
Totally.
I'm on another continent.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I got people that are getting older. I have, like pets that are getting older, like that type of stuff. Yeah. So for me, it was a matter of I've exhausted this.
Yeah.
College is free both college. I got 2 free educations.
Fantastic.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, this basketball has served its purpose. There's nothing else I want from this. I had a couple tryouts with the Lakers.
Yeah.
Didn't make it.
Yeah.
I didn't make the EuroLeague. All right, cool. I've reached my peak. Let me stop now so I'm not 35, 36, 37 trying to come home, find a spouse, start a family with probably no money and making sure that like I'm set up for life after this is all over.
Yeah.
And that was just me being real with myself. I was like, if I haven't touched the NBA and I know I'm not going to be making millions of dollars, then what am I doing?
Yeah.
Right. So I think that for athletes, you just have to come to the point where it's okay to chase a dream. I had homies that were playing in 5th Division Spain for $400 a week. Yeah. Because they wanted to chase the dream.
And that felt good to them. That felt comfy for them. That was their good choice.
Everybody is on their own trajectory, and I'm not here to judge or cause
totally.
Stress.
Totally.
Right. So I think that I support athletes wanting to chase their dreams, but I also support the ones that are going to say, hey, look, I've exhausted this. Yeah. I'm tired. My body's tired. My mind is tired. All right. Now, that is where OS was born, is out of that need of like, no, I was able to say, look, I've had enough of this. Yeah. And I look around and I'm like, man, everybody from 22 to 37, they're still trying to hold on to it because they don't know what is going to be next. It's that sense of unfamiliarity, that gray area that, again, since 6 years old, I've been so comfortable operating in. How can I take my experience so far and translate that to a world in which I can empower other people to just continue chasing their dreams in a way that doesn't cause them to miss other aspects of their lives. That's all.
And how do I actively choose to step away from the only thing that I have known?
Yes, I think it's something to be cognitive of, is just understanding that it's not going to be easy because, again, a large part of you, it's not dying. But it's just you're closing that door to that room. It's a tough decision. It's a tough decision. Yeah. But when we're going back on the topic of betting on yourself, I want to start building whatever it is.
You were ready for next. You were ready for the next.
Exactly. So I just knew, look, check the parachutes and jump.
Yeah. And then, started into those early jobs.
Started out at the YMCA as a sports director. So being big in the community, but in the nonprofit space. It was the word I tell people all the time about that point in my life is tumultuous. And I say that, and I had a good support system.
There were probably some days during that time
some
where
weeks,
maybe a couple months, right? To where you were like, shit, like I feel unsure or whatever it is. And I chose this. And again, definitely no regrets, but there's definitely that piece of like, you got to grieve it.
Exactly.
And I don't know that that's always talked about enough proactively.
100%. And that's contingency plans and preparation. Again, you can have the best laid out plan, you can have the best support system, and you still are going to have rough weeks.
You can have amazing memories. You can end on a national championship. You can end on a world championship. It's still going to suck.
Exactly.
You still got to grieve it.
Yep. It's time to put on a different mask for the next chapter of your life. But so COVID hits. I'm at the YMCA, and I get laid off in July of 2020. They laid off a bunch of people. So I spent a couple months in free fall. I'm like, I don't know. This is the first time in my life I've been cut. Yeah. Per se, right? Like my first real life adversity. Like, man, I got bills to pay. Like I got
adversity
rent.
To where like next step isn't clear. Next step isn't finding another team. Next step isn't.
Exactly. So this is real.
It's real.
It's real.
Real.
So I'm like, all right. I found myself going back into that hustle mentality. Where like, all right, I gotta obviously have to pay rent. So I started at a tech sales job. And I was working there. I was taking meetings as early as 5:00 for people in Africa.
Yep.
All the way up until like 3 p.m. Pacific. And then I was going to work at a restaurant in Beverly Hills. So like that was my life.
Yeah.
5 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Dang.
And then like, again, still I got to go to the gym. I got to do X, Y, and Z. That lasted for about 5 months. And then Dom from high school, he had moved out here.
Yeah.
And he started working with this company in the fintech space.
Yeah.
And referred me to them. And I started that company in April of 2021. And that company allowed me to really get a glimpse of the corporate side of things in a for-profit setting. Again, nonprofit, completely different.
Totally.
Right? I was with them for 3 years.
Okay.
And then OS just called my name. And it's just like, you know what? I really believe this is the year that I can do this.
Yeah. You're ready to go out on your own.
Ready to go on my own. Like I'd had last year to kind of like test the waters, run some pilot studies, develop some proof of concepts, proof of work.
Yeah.
Got enough people interested to where now it's like, okay, this has legs. This can do some good things. Went full time with OS late February of this year.
Okay.
And we've been
I love it.
Rolling. We've been
I love it.
And able to do cool things like this.
Yeah.
And just kind of like be able to share the message of what OS is building and where we're headed.
Yeah. So pre you going all in on yourself this year with kind of your other jobs and all that, this is kind of your first time stepping back into that athlete space. I guess YMCA. You were in that world.
So
okay.
I was doing youth programming and
before
pickleball got hot. And I was, setting up nets and whatnot. Love that community to death.
Yes.
They were blowing my phone up saying, I'm canceling my membership if you don't get pickleball nets.
Stop.
I kid you not. My phone was blowing up.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? Fine. I got on Amazon and I ordered an entire pickleball set. This YMCA was brand new.
Yes.
It had a super nice gym.
Yes.
So I go in there, I'm like, you know what? I send it out. I'm like, look, on this date, pickleball, you wanted it, is here. So I kid you not, I go in, first day, set it all up.
Yep.
People come in the gym, they're super excited. They got their own paddles. They don't need mine.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm like, oh.
They're like, we just wanted the net in the space.
The net in the space.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, got it. So people come in, they're looking around, and they're like, just kind of like coming outside of like a cave for the first time, like checking the floor,
feeling
like
it out, squeaking their sneakers.
And I'm like, okay, y'all got it. I go back to my office.
Oh no.
I kid you not. Less than 5 minutes later, a lady comes knock on the door. Chris, can you come in the gym for a second? I'm like, all right, cool. So I go in the gym. Now, no indoor basketball court is set up for pickleball. So what I did was I had taped lines down.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I got the tape measure.
Right. Yeah.
All of this stuff. Some new people who had come in to join the crew had brought tape measurers. And they were like, Chris, this measurement is off. This one's off by a couple inches. I'm like, are you serious? Like, ain't no way y'all out here. Y'all got this much time.
You have so much time.
All right.
You brought your own tape measure to the gym.
To the gym,
you had a tape measure in your bag.
Correct. Hey, to each their own. I said, you know what?
When
you come back tomorrow, I got
it's going to be so good.
Right. I'll never forget. I was like, okay, best I can do is after y'all leave, then I'll
pull these up and
put it on. And I remember, I'll never forget this one older lady. She's like, all right, I guess it'll do for today. You know the Arnold meme where he's like shaking his fist?
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Yes, it will do for today.
It will have to do for today.
It's literally going to have to do for today. Otherwise, you're all going to stand here and watch me do this for another hour.
Exactly. And then by that time, y'all's session is up.
Exactly.
So I'll catch y'all tomorrow.
Which also that then takes my brain just to the like, Chris just retired as a professional basketball player.
You want to talk about the highs and lows of life. Valleys and peaks is crazy. Like, I'm out here again.
I guess it'll do for today. And I was just dropping 30 in front of 2,000 people 6 weeks ago. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that's
a lot. Okay.
Right. That was a very humbling experience.
Very humbling experience.
Which again, it's everything kind of just sums up to, like, again, collective experiences.
Yep.
So these infinity stones of experiences have led me to be able to go into pitch meetings with universities, how to deal with people who are de-escalating a situation if somebody's frustrated, how to cater a service knowing that it's not one size fit all. Like, we're going to need to target these types of people, hit them with this messaging, having contingency plans on how to deal with certain things. It's just dealing with people. If you can deal with people, you can run a business.
Yep.
Right. And it's like, if you are willing to understand that not every day is going to be perfect, nor should you want it to be.
Totally.
Then you can build a successful, scalable business.
Overtime Solutions. Who's it for? Tell me about it.
Yeah. So Overtime Solutions is honestly just a company born out of experience, realizing that athletes they're at a disadvantage for a lot of reasons, right? And you can hop into a lot of different realms with that. You can say that there's structural racism barriers. You can say that there's like time barriers in terms of not having access to do an internship because you have practice in the summertime, like that type of stuff. So, we're built on the basis of transition and career preparation, because our biggest thing is, whether you're a pro athlete or whether you are a collegiate athlete, your story is going to look a lot different than the typical student. A typical student is going to have enough time to go to the Career Services Center, get the cookie cutter curriculum, and then say, oh, this is going to work, and then go to a job fair. But basically what we do is we just help athletes holistically transition to their next chapter. So again, whether it's by choice or by injury or whatever it is, making sure that your experiences, although they're not going to be traditionally what your college classmates may have had, they are relevant. Because again, going back to dealing with people, if you have all of these things that I don't have to teach you,
those intangibles
that
we hear about all the time, right?
All the time.
You want to be coachable. You want to do,
Exactly. You can work as an individual. You can work in a team setting. You understand when things aren't, like, not every day is going to look the same. Like, you operate in that ambiguity and you thrive. And that's something that I wanted to highlight with OS. A recruiter eye I would want to see this. So while you may not have an internship, you can be proficient in Microsoft Office. You can be proficient in Google Workspace. You can be proficient in a lot of other areas. But my job is to tell you how to do that. Because I've lived both sides of that. Right. So now it's a matter of, how can we take your experiences, put it into words, and put it into etiquette when it comes to interviews, showing you how to pretty much automate your life. So then when the time comes from when someone does want to speak to you, you're not sitting there saying, well, I did play basketball, or I did play soccer, and I did this thing. No, it's no, it's a very labor intensive program on coaching you,
time management, and all the
exactly
all the things. 100%. It's like, yes, use that to your advantage, because that was you consistently showing up to an internship like thing, or whatever
6
it is.
6 a.m. practice, or individual workouts, like all of these things that you've been doing, and it's just making sure that you put it the right way, in a way that's receptive to it's received well by employers. And it would make your resume stand out from another situation, which is I mean, that's kind of like the core of what we do from a curriculum standpoint. But that wasn't enough. Last April, the NCAA Student Athlete Advisory Committee, SAC, D1 committee, came out with a ruling where they wanted to create what was called the holistic student athlete model. And it was this model that every student, every D1 university needs to offer this list of 9 services if they want to retain their Division I membership. What do we know about D1 schools? They want to keep that money.
They want to
keep that. We see every March Madness, right? And again, I'm so happy college athletes can get their money now, right? Again, we lived in a world which that obviously could not happen. But again, things that made sense. And it's called the holistic student athlete model for a reason. It's this entire comprehensive situation of offerings. So I'm like, you know what? That makes sense for me to just continue building out. The first 2 people I brought on the team were mental health therapists. Because I realized, man, I felt unstable. Felt as though I would have loved to have somebody to be like, oh, no, like, cool, like, you're good. A weekly check-in or a monthly check-in or whatever athletes need. So I position myself as, hey, look, we got 7 of the 9. Let me partner with your organization because it looks good for both of us. And when the NCAA comes around, oh, we're working with OS to do X, Y, and Z. Now being able to pitch that at the university level, the conference level, it's something that's finally seeing a lot of traction. Again, like having meetings daily around it, because people are like, oh no, like I don't have to go to several different grocery stores on Sunday night.
And they don't have to find a specific person for their campus for all these things.
Exactly. So being able to consolidate everything under one roof is really just kind of what it is. And people are just like, hey, look, we're understaffed, or, we're looking for a supplemental program to be able to do this. And now it's just like, all right, well, this is a no-brainer. And then recently took it a step even further because, again, keeping it holistic, job placement, right? So I've recently kicked off the OS Teammates program, where basically what I'm doing is employers, they want athletes.
Yep, they do.
Athletes,
they do.
They want jobs.
Yep.
What's common sense?
Yep.
Let's put it together. Right.
Perfect.
So once we went live with that, a lot of people were like, hey, how can we get involved? And it's just like, all right, cool. Once you sign up, you get access to this list of athletes who are also looking, or even internships in the summertime.
Yeah.
So, if you're a fall or a winter athlete who's going to have summer open, we put you in an internship.
Yeah.
So really just making it the one-stop shop for everything that you want to do.
How do people find out more about it?
You can find us on LinkedIn, Overtime Solutions, just the company page. You can find us on Instagram at Overtime Solutions LLC. And then overtimesolutions.com is our website.
Anything else you want to put out into the world?
I have one tattoo. And it says, hard work beats talent when talent fails to work hard. You may not always be in control of your circumstances, but you are in control of how much work you put in towards whatever you're building. So whether that's a business, whether that's a relationship, whether that's friendship, parenting, whatever it is, show up every day and make sure that you're showing up for the right reasons. Showing up for a paycheck it's necessary, but it's another societal construct.
Yep.
Show up for yourself, right? So when you ask me, how are you doing, as opposed to what are you doing? Huge difference.
Yep.
Just making sure that a paycheck, not all money is good money. For everybody out there in the sports space or not, don't ever feel as though you're being held hostage in a situation that you don't have to be in. And most importantly, just be willing to jump, to bet on yourself. Again, like I said, double check the parachutes, jump out the plane, jump in the deep end with no floaties, whatever it is.
I love it.
But just be willing to bet on yourself when everybody else, when the world tells you not to.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review. You taking that 5 minutes makes a huge difference and helps us to be able to make more episodes like this. And if you want to see more content in between the episodes, follow us at No Former Athlete on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. I'm so glad you're a part of this No Former Athlete community. And if you know any No Former Athletes that you think I should get in touch with, DM me on Instagram at No Former Athlete. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.